I have my own questions because I think that, at least in the vast majority of these cases, I'm not going to say all, but in the vast majority of these cases, we're talking about spiritual deception. I'm Michael Brown, journalist and author, most recently of a book called Wonders Strangest Things. And I want to talk today about deceptions. As in the previous video, the link of which is below, we discussed how so much phenomena being reported around the world have connections that are spiritual, whether Bigfoot or other type of creatures, lake monsters, and so forth. Today, I'd like to zero in a little bit on UFOs, on flying saucers. Of course, there have been indications of strange objects in the sky for thousands of years, literally, since the days of Ezekiel, since times in ancient Peru. There are even scrawls and etchings on caves in Neanderthal times or Cro-Magnon times in Europe, showing what seemed to be kind of things in the sky or something being worshipped. Some people claim there are even ancient airstrips in South America and mysteries in places like Egypt, China. In recent times, there was the eruption started in some ways in the 1870s when, quote, airships, unquote, were being spotted around the United States, and then burst into the scene in the 1940s. Specifically in June of 1947, when a fellow named Kenneth Arnold, a businessman and a pilot, spotted a number of objects above Mount Rainier and clocked them at thousands of miles an hour before they disappeared out of his view, acting in a very strange way, looking, he said, like a saucer skipping over water. That's where they came up with the expression flying saucer. At any rate, that same year, 1947, is very intriguing because his was not the first sighting that year. It turns out, when I look back at an academic paper on UFO sightings at that time, there were more than 300 sightings in the United States, one of which became extremely famous, the most famous UFO case of all time, in Roswell, New Mexico, where sometime in the first few days of July that same year of 1947, a week or so after Kenneth Arnold, you had a rancher, Mac Brazil, in New Mexico, who spotted a debris field near a sheep ranch where he worked. And it looked like something very alien, something very strange, at least to them. He didn't report it right away, but he went back and then when he noted all of the reports around the country on UFOs, like Kenneth Arnold's, which triggered an avalanche of publicity, he whispered what he had seen to the local sheriff, who then notified the Roswell military base, the Army airfield there. And they went out there and immediately confiscated all of whatever was out there and shipped it off to another installation in Dallas, where it was, from whence it was shipped to Wright-Patterson Airfield Base in Ohio. Of course, the Roswell became famous because there was the claim that humanoids were witnessed at the scene, deceased extraterrestrials. The typical short, slanty-eyed, bulbous-headed creatures that we hear about in so many of these cases. I don't know what happened at Roswell. I don't know if I believe it. You read so much about it. There have been thousands of articles. There have been dozens of books. There have been all these various documentaries. And yet it's very hard to get to the bottom of it because there is contradictory information. It didn't even take place in Roswell. It took place 75 miles north of there. But at any rate, it became famous for being a crashed flying saucer, even though the military, while at first saying it had a flying disc in its possession, then said that it was a weather balloon, which struck a lot of people as being a cover story. And so it might have been, although later on, in recent times, the military released information on a secret program back then, whereby they were flying high altitude balloons to secretly monitor nuclear blast in the Soviet Union in Russia. And that's why there was so much secrecy and an initial cover-up. It's called Project Mogul. Again, I don't know what exactly happened there. Some of the testimonies from people, some of those testimonies are very convincing that they saw otherworldly creatures and not just the debris field from high altitude balloons, but a flying disc that was there crashed, hit by lightning the night before. There was another debris field 250 miles away on the plain of San Augustine, where the same thing was described, including humanoids. I do know this, and while I have questions too about other cases whereby there seemed to be physical evidence, I have my own questions because I think that at least in the vast majority of these cases, I'm not going to say all, but in the vast majority of these cases, we're talking about spiritual deception, lying wonders, as it says in Thessalonians. And I say that because so many of these reports are far more ephemeral. They're more like apparitions than solid objects, appearing, disappearing, following families for generations, appearing in the same places above graveyards or Indian burial mounds or woodland where witches have covens. Why is that? Why would extraterrestrials be interested in appearing above old Indian ritual sites or with something open there through rituals in the past, a portal to somewhere else? There's the disc. Mainly it's orbs. And again, sometimes at grave sites. Orbs of light. Some orbs of light are huge and some are tiny. Some are seen in the sky, some are seen in homes. Would extraterrestrials really be winging about inside a home? And why are these so similar to what the Indians used to call spirit lights? These orbs can take any form they want. They're various colors, usually red. They appear and disappear. Again, especially at occult spots. Then you have the alien abductions. These are very problematic. You have people who are extremely upset because they say that they not only encountered a UFO, but that the passengers, the explorers, the extraterrestrials, whatever you want to call them, that were in those craft, not only took them aboard, but performed medical examinations or procedures on them, leaving them in stark terror. If these are benevolent creatures from another planet, why is that so consistent that there is terror, that there is the smell of sulfur, as happens around evil spirits? Why? How can a big UFO suddenly be in the middle of a bedroom of a woman who claimed to have a hybrid child, half human, half alien? Or is this like the Nephilim in Genesis 6. Satan can take any shape he wants, so can disembodied spirits. You have so much of this that's involved with rock stars. It's very interesting. A UFO, a blue UFO, a big blue UFO was seen above Elvis Presley's house, according to his father, at the moment of his birth. Elvis went through his life obsessed with UFOs and extraterrestrials and the occult. And in fact, the color blue, witnessed in songs like Blue Suede Shoes, and all the way he attired himself in later years. John Lennon claimed a couple such experiences. He claimed once in the Upper East Side of Manhattan to have seen a flying saucer right outside his window, right near his balcony, with his girlfriend at the time. And also later on, inside of his home, a strange light illuminated that was, quote, extraterrestrial, leaving him an object. Although where it is, I don't know. I've never seen it. I've never seen physical evidence for any flying saucer. Mick Jagger claimed to have seen one at an occult site in England. Jimi Hendrix saw UFOs at Woodstock Festival, as did others at that famous rock festival in the 1960s. Keith Richards famously encountered UFOs. The list of rock stars is a long one. And why is this? Are they, in fact, channeling something from these UFOs? Is it part of their inspiration? Maybe even much of it, most of it. These days, we hear of shapeshifters or lizard people. That's big on the internet with young people. Illuminati and so forth. But again, we get back to the fact that UFOs are confusing if they're physical because they appear for decades in the same place. They seem to drag those who witness them into the occult. People are haunted by them. And there's also this, the fact that according to one researcher I spoke to, who started out looking at it from a secular, non-Christian standpoint, he found out in hundreds of cases that uttering the name Jesus dispelled aliens when they were about to abduct somebody. If the person about to be abducted used the name Jesus, the experience stopped, and only then did it stop. And what does that tell us? Angels can transform, they can reconfigure, they can create something that looks like a vehicle. There are accounts of angels that create trucks or other vehicles, cars that just show up out of nowhere. So demons can do the same thing. Nephilim. Genesis 6 says, "Now it came about when men began to multiply on the face of the land, and daughters were born to them, that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves, whomever they chose. Then the Lord said, My spirit shall not strive with man forever, because he is also flesh. Nevertheless, his days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterwards, says Genesis, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men and bore them children. Those were the mighty men of old, men of renown. Then the Lord saw the wickedness of man and how great it was on earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually." That was the main reason for the flood in Noah's time. Are we repeating that today? Well, it's something for all of us to contemplate. These objects have been seen virtually everywhere, and they're constantly in the news this day. The military reports and the Navy off the coast of California, off the east coast of the United States. There's films of them doing things that nothing physical could do. appearing, disappearing, materializing, dematerializing, just like in the occult, just like with spirit mediums, just like in haunted houses and poltergeist events. I'm just urging you to be careful with all of these things, because they're just what I said, lying wonders and strangest things. Please keep in mind my new book by that title, available at spiritdaily.com or on Amazon. And if you enjoyed this little snippet of video, please click the thumbs up. Please subscribe if you would. And please join us again next time. As well as, if you want to look at the introductory video, check out below and you'll see a link to the first video that we did. Thank you very much. God bless you.